In every city, there's a story people whisper about, a local legend that feels a little too real. This one is about a woman who collected gold for something far darker than greed. It's a story about a hunger that never dies and a curse that passes from one hand to the next, sealed in metal. Her name was Mara Velichko. She lived alone in an old apartment block, the kind with creaking floors and the constant smell of dust and damp. To her neighbors, she was just a reclusive old woman, a fixture of the building. But Mara had a strange, all-consuming hobby. She spent her meager pension buying gold, not the polished, perfect kind you'd see in a jeweler's window. No, Mara sought out the forgotten pieces, broken jewelry, old, tarnished wedding bands, scraps of gold from pawn shops and flea markets. Anything that had a history. She never sold a single item. Her small apartment became a dragon's hoard, but without the gleam and glory. Gold was stuffed into old jam jars, piled in dusty drawers, and hidden away in little cloth bags. The place didn't glitter. It seemed to absorb the light. When anyone dared to ask why she kept all this junk, she would fix them with her cloudy eyes and say something strange. "Gold remembers," she'd whisper. "It remembers its owners, their joys, their sorrows, and their fears." She treated each piece not like an object, but like a captured memory, a piece of a person's soul, trapped in metal. The obsession, people later pieced together, began years ago at an antique market. Mara was sifting through a tray of mismatched trinkets when she found it. A strange, unassuming ring. It wasn't particularly valuable, just a simple band of old gold, but something about it called to her. She bought it for next to nothing. That night, her dreams changed. She dreamt of golden eyes, two molten orbs watching her from the darkness. They were followed by whispers, a sibilant hiss that seemed to slither into her mind. The whispers spoke of hunger, a deep gnawing hunger that only gold could satisfy. Mara became convinced that a spirit, a demon, lived inside gold. This ring was its heart, its anchor in our world, and it was starving. She had to feed it. So she began her collection, bringing it more and more pieces, each one a small offering to quiet the whispers and keep the golden eyes at bay. Her apartment wasn't a home anymore. It was a cage and a temple for the entity she now served. The golden reflections in her apartment started to move when she wasn't looking, and shadows in the corners would deepen and twist into unnatural shapes. The demon was growing stronger. Years passed. The weight of her secret and the constant drain of the entity's hunger took their toll. Mara grew frail, a ghost in her own home, trapped by her golden prison. Her health declined so rapidly that social services had to intervene. They sent a young caregiver named Alina Dreyer. Alina was everything Mara was not: bright, kind, and full of life. She was patient with the reclusive old woman, cleaning the dusty apartment, preparing meals, and trying to bring a little light into the gloom. But Alina wasn't naive. She couldn't ignore the sheer amount of gold stashed away in every nook and cranny. It was bizarre, and frankly, a little unnerving. She noticed how Mara watched her every move, her eyes darting to the jars and bags whenever Alina got too close. The old woman guarded her treasure with a fierce, almost primal obsession. It was more than just hoarding. It was a ritual. Mara was protecting it, or maybe she was protecting everyone else from it. One afternoon, while tidying a cluttered side table, Alina's eyes fell upon the small plain ring. It was different from the rest of the gaudy, broken collection. It sat alone, almost forgotten. But as Alina reached for it, Mara's voice, now a dry rasp, cut through the silence. "Don't touch that one." The warning was weak, but filled with a terror that made Alina pause. For a moment, she hesitated, but it was just a ring, an old, worthless ring. What harm could it do? Ignoring the frantic look in Mara's eyes, Alina's fingers closed around it. It was surprisingly warm. With a final defiant glance at the helpless old woman, she slipped it into her pocket. As she did, she saw Mara's shadow on the wall seem to stiffen, to grow taller. before collapsing in on itself. Walking home as the sun set, Alina felt a strange sense of victory, but it didn't last. She started to hear a faint, phantom jingling, like distant chimes, following her down the street. A strange heat began to pulse from the pocket where she'd hidden the ring, spreading through her hand. Then, the world started to look different. As people passed by, their jewelry, earrings, chains, rings seemed to shine with an unnatural light, catching her eye, pulling at her attention. They glowed. They called to her. That night, she had the dream. Not of golden eyes watching from the darkness, but of gold itself melting, swirling, and forming into two hungry eyes that stared directly into hers. When she woke up, her palm was tingling. A few days later, things got worse. Her neighbor complained that a silver locket had vanished from her dresser. Another mentioned a missing wedding band. Jewelry was disappearing from the building, and Alina found herself with a growing collection of items she didn't remember taking. The hunger had been passed on. It didn't take long for Alina to realize she wasn't alone inside her own mind anymore. There was another presence, a cold, demanding consciousness that shared her thoughts. The demon from the gold. It was controlling her, using her hands to satisfy its insatiable appetite. Each stolen piece brought a brief moment of relief, a quiet in her head, before the gnawing hunger returned, stronger than before. She started having visions, seeing the faces of those she stole from. But their faces were wrong. They were empty, hollow, with dark, gaping sockets where their eyes should be. The demon wasn't just taking their gold, it was taking a part of them, too. A week after the theft, Mara Velichko died quietly in her sleep. The old keeper was gone. The demon was free to fully claim its new host. The final transfer was complete. Now, Alina stands in her own apartment. The light from the street lamp outside filters through the window, catching on the piles of jewelry that surround her. Chains, bracelets, and rings cover every surface, a testament to her unwilling nightly hunts. She picks up a locket, its metal stained with something dark and slick. As she looks at her reflection in its polished surface, her eyes flicker and glow with a terrifying molten gold light. The whispers are constant now, a symphony of greed and hunger. The demon of gold accepts no gifts. It only accepts sacrifices. And the sacrifices have only just begun.